My daughter-in-law posted a TikTok calling me trailer trash while I was flatlined in surgery. I'm not kidding. September 15th, 2024. I'm in room 314 at Harvest Valley Medical Center, coming out of a heart procedure that nearly killed me. My son James is pacing the hallway, worried sick. And there's Stephanie, my daughter-in-law, sitting in the corner with her iPhone 15 Pro Max, filming herself. Day 3 of freedom from the farm, she whispers to her camera. Walter's finally unconscious, so we can talk about upgrading our lives. I kept my eyes closed, let her think I couldn't hear. She had no idea what she just triggered. What she didn't know about our worthless farm was about to change everything for her and her family. Before I tell you how this ends, you need to understand how it started. Stephanie Davis Anderson married my son 3 years ago. From day one, she treated our family farm like a social disease.
Our place sits on 200 acres in Harvest Valley, Iowa, about 45 minutes from Des Moines. Been in the Anderson family since 1924. The red barn's older than most buildings in town. The farmhouse? Built in 1952, same year I was born. Nothing fancy, but it's home. Stephanie saw it differently. This isn't a home, she told James after their first overnight visit. It's a poverty museum. She came from what she called old money. Her parents, David and Carol Davis, used to own a vineyard in Napa Valley. Used to. Lost everything in the 2008 crash, but Stephanie never stopped acting like royalty. She drove an $89,000 BMW X7, carried a $12,500 Hermes Kelly bag, wore designer clothes that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Meanwhile, I drove a 1987 Ford F-150 worth maybe $8,200 on a good day. Wore Carhartt work jackets that cost $89 each and lasted 20 years. My idea of fancy was dinner at the Harvest Valley Diner, where coffee still costs $1.50. The social media campaign started small. Instagram stories about visiting the countryside, then TikTok videos about rural life adventures, always with that condescending smile, like she was documenting a zoo exhibit. My father-in-law still uses a rotary phone, she'd giggle to her followers, literally from the Stone Age. The comments ate it up. Girl, you're slumming it. How do you survive without Starbucks? That's not rustic, that's just sad. 6 months ago, the tone shifted. Generational poverty is real, y'all, she posted, filming our kitchen with its 1970s appliances. Some families just accept being left behind. Her follower count exploded. 47,000 people watching her mock our life. Brand partnerships started rolling in. Skincare companies, fashion brands. Everyone wanted to sponsor the authentic influencer showing real America. This is my content goldmine, she told James one night, thinking I couldn't hear from the living room. Poor farm life is so hot right now. James tried defending us. Dad built something here, Steph. This farm means everything to him. Built what? She laughed. A monument to refusing progress? Your dad's stuck in 1950 and he's trying to drag us down with him. But she was building quite the following with her farm-shaming content. Each video more brutal than the last. The wooden kitchen table handmade by my grandfather became furniture poverty. My collection of farming magazines became hoarding behavior. Our family photos on the mantle became shrine to failure. The breaking point came in August. Stephanie filmed herself in our living room, speaking directly to the camera. I've been documenting generational poverty for months now, she said, panning across our furniture. This is what happens when families refuse to evolve. Look at this place. Everything's falling apart. The carpet's from 1985. The couch has permanent body impressions. This isn't humble living, it's giving up. She zoomed in on my father's purple heart, displayed in a simple frame on the bookshelf. Even their war memorabilia is bargain basement, she smirked. My followers deserve to see authentic wealth, not this hillbilly cosplay. 2.3 million views. 47,000 shares. The comments section exploded with people either defending us or joining her mockery. Local news picked it up. Iowa farm family becomes unlikely social media stars. That's when I knew she was planning something bigger, something that would change our lives forever. But she had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead. The cruelest conversation happened on September 18th, 3 days after my surgery. I was lying in that hospital bed, machines beeping around me, when my phone rang. Stephanie's voice crystal clear. She thought I was unconscious, thought she could speak freely. Hi, this is Stephanie Anderson calling about the property listing we discussed. Property listing. My blood pressure monitor started climbing. Yes, the 200-acre farm on Meadowbrook Road.
My father-in-law is incapacitated. Heart surgery complications. We need to move quickly while he can't interfere. I grabbed my phone from the bedside table, hit record, and kept my eyes closed. The asking price. Well, the property appraiser said $920,000 for the whole package. Land, house, outbuildings. I know it seems low, but honestly, this place represents everything backward about America. Old white farmers hoarding land while young families struggle. The realtor must have asked about me specifically. Walter Anderson? He's 68, no business sense whatsoever. Been farming the same plots for 40 years like it's still 1950. No modernization, no efficiency. The man still handwrites his accounting in ledger books. Can you believe that? She was pacing now.
I could hear her heels clicking on the hospital floor. Listen, between you and me, I'm doing society a favor getting this developed. The town needs progress, not some stubborn old man's dirt farming museum. My husband's too sentimental to see it, but Walter's basically holding back the entire community. The realtor said something about market timing. Oh, the timing's perfect. Walter will be in recovery for weeks, maybe months, and honestly, at his age, with his health problems, he might not be making decisions much longer anyway. His son James has legal power of attorney. I just need to convince him that selling is the compassionate choice. My heart rate spiked. The nurses would be wondering why. James still has these romantic ideas about family legacy and honoring his father. But I've been working on him, showing him what we could do with $920,000. A nice house in Des Moines, maybe even Omaha, somewhere civilized. She paused and I heard her typing on her phone. You know what the funniest part is? Walter thinks he's some kind of successful businessman. The man drives a truck older than my little sister, wears the same 3 flannel shirts year-round, lives like he's afraid to spend a dime. If that's success, I'll take failure any day. The realtor must have asked about neighborhood interest. The neighbors will thank us. Everyone's tired of looking at that eyesore. Peeling paint, broken fencing, rusty equipment scattered everywhere. It's dragging down property values for miles. This isn't a farm, it's a poverty museum. Now she was getting animated. This was her true voice. I married into this family thinking there was hidden wealth somewhere. You know how farmers are supposed to be land rich? Well, turns out some farmers are just land poor. Really, really poor. Walter's got maybe $50,000 in the bank on a good day. No investments, no retirement fund worth mentioning. Just dirt. Hundreds of acres of dirt. Another pause. More typing. My parents think I'm crazy for staying this long. They're right. I've got followers now. Brand partnerships. Real opportunities. But I can't build an influencer career from a cornfield in nowhere, Iowa. This place represents everything I'm trying to escape. The realtor said something about paperwork. James will sign. He has to. I've shown him the numbers. We're bleeding money every month keeping this place running. Property taxes, equipment maintenance, seed costs. It's like pouring money into a black hole. And for what? So Walter can pretend he's still relevant. She was walking again, probably back toward my room. The best part? Once we sell, we can finally start living like adults. No more pretending to respect his farming wisdom. No more family dinners in that depressing kitchen. No more listening to stories about the good old days when corn was king. One final insult for the road. You want to know the truth? Walter Anderson is everything wrong with rural America. Stubborn, backwards, and too proud to admit the world passed him by. This sale isn't just good business. It's mercy. For him and for us. The call ended. Stephanie walked back into my room, sat down, and started scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. If only she knew who she was really talking about. I kept that recording safe. Every word documented. Every insult preserved, because Stephanie Davis Anderson had no idea she'd just declared war on the wrong farmer. I had exactly 72 hours to decide how this would end. The doctors said I'd be discharged on September 21st. The realtor scheduled a property walkthrough for September 22nd. James was wavering, caught between his wife's pressure and his own doubts. Stephanie was already posting TikToks about exciting life changes coming soon. I could have stopped it immediately. Sat up in that hospital bed, called my lawyer, shut down the whole operation, but that would have been too easy, too simple. Stephanie thought she was dealing with a confused old farmer who kept his money under the mattress. She had no idea what 3 decades of quiet investment had built. No idea that her worthless dirt farm was headquarters to something much bigger. Let me tell you what she didn't know. In 1987, I bought my first property outside the family farm.
A foreclosed house in town for $12,000. Fixed it up, rented it out. Used that income to buy another house, then another. By 1995, I owned 17 rental properties across 3 counties. But real estate was just the beginning. That same year, I started Anderson Organic Farms, LLC, not just growing corn and soybeans like every other farmer in Iowa. Organic produce, specialty crops, direct contracts with grocery chains. Whole Foods has been buying from us since 2003. $285,000 in monthly revenue. That's what those poor dirt fields generate, every month. For the past 15 years. The rental properties, 23 now, worth $14.2 million total. Monthly rent income, $67,000. The organic farming operation, valued at $38 million according to our last business assessment. Stephanie was trying to sell a $920,000 farm. She was actually trying to sell a $52 million agricultural empire, but here's the part that would destroy her. 3 years ago, when her parents lost their vineyard and needed work, who do you think quietly hired them? David Davis, groundskeeper at Meadowbrook Country Club, $58,000 annual salary. Carol Davis, catering manager at the same club, $44,000 annual salary. They never knew their employer. All hiring went through management companies. All paychecks came from corporate accounts. But every dollar of their income for the past 3 years came from Walter Anderson's businesses. The country club itself? I bought it in 2019 when the previous owners defaulted on their loan. $3.2 million purchase price. Stephanie's parents work for me. They just don't know it. Remember Stephanie's sister, the one teaching at Willowbrook Private School? The school where Stephanie brags about her family's education connections? I own 51% of the school board. Have since 2021. Her grandmother's assisted living facility, funded through the Anderson Family Foundation, has been for 4 years. Even the apartment complex where Stephanie and James live, Anderson Properties LLC bought it last year when the previous owner went bankrupt. For 3 years, Stephanie's entire family has been surviving on my money, while she made TikToks mocking my poverty. But I wasn't ready to reveal any of this yet. Strategic patience, that's what my father taught me. Let your enemies defeat themselves, Walter, then step aside and watch them fall. So I made my decision. I would let Stephanie continue her campaign. Let her dig deeper. Let her reveal exactly who she was to the whole world. Then, when she felt most confident, most secure in her victory, I would show her what real power looked like. I called my lawyer from the hospital bed. Michael, I need you to document everything. Every social media post, every conversation, every legal document they try to file. I want a complete record. Are you planning to contest the sale? I'm planning to teach someone a lesson about respect. Next, I called my accountant. Janet, I need a full portfolio review. Every property, every business, every investment. I want documentation showing exactly how much the Anderson family is worth. Is this for estate planning? It's for education. Finally, I called the management company that runs Meadowbrook Country Club. This is Walter Anderson. I need you to schedule performance reviews for David and Carol Davis. Nothing negative, just standard evaluation procedures, and I want it done publicly during the monthly staff meeting. James walked into my room just as I hung up. Dad, how are you feeling? Better than I have in years, son. Much better. Stephanie's been talking about some big changes, maybe selling the farm, moving closer to the city. I looked at my boy. 25 years old, good heart, but he'd never learned to see past people's masks. James, do you trust your wife's judgment about our family's worth? He shifted uncomfortably. I trust her intentions, Dad. Intentions don't pay bills, son. Results do. I had exactly one more day to finish my preparations. One more day before Stephanie discovered what happens when you declare war on the wrong farmer. The clock was ticking. And I was ready. September 22nd, the day Stephanie planned to tour our worthless farm with potential buyers. I was discharged that morning, playing the part of a weak, confused old man who needed help walking to the car. James fussed over me like I might collapse any second. Stephanie barely looked up from her phone. "Take it easy today, Dad," James said, helping me into the passenger seat. "The realtor's coming by around 2 p.m., but you don't need to be involved. Just rest." "I'll be fine, son. Might make a few phone calls, check on some old friends." Stephanie finally glanced over. "Try not to embarrass us in front of the realtor, okay? This is important." I understand completely. What she didn't understand was that my phone calls were about to turn her world upside down. First call went to Michael Stevens, my property manager at Meadowbrook Country Club. Michael, this is Walter Anderson. I need to discuss some staffing concerns. Of course, Mr. Anderson. What's the issue? I've been reviewing employee performance metrics, specifically David and Carol Davis.
I understand they're coming up for their annual review?
That's correct. Both have been solid employees. No complaints. Good. I want their reviews conducted at next week's staff meeting. Full transparency. And Michael, I want every employee to understand that their job security depends on maintaining our club's reputation for excellence. Absolutely, sir. Should I mention any specific performance standards? Just remind everyone that discretion and loyalty are core values here. Employees who respect the institution will always have a place. Those who don't, well, we have policies for that. Michael knew exactly what I meant. The club's employee handbook was crystal clear about social media conduct and confidentiality agreements. Second call went to Jennifer Martinez, my accountant. Jennifer, I need you to review the Anderson Foundation's charitable giving commitments. Certainly. Are you considering any changes? Just ensuring all recipients still meet our criteria.
Particularly any elderly care facilities we've been supporting. I want to verify that families we help are truly deserving of continued assistance. I'll pull those records. The Sunset Manor account, correct? Among others. Some beneficiary families may have changed circumstances. We should reassess their need for charitable support. Jennifer understood. The Foundation's bylaws required regular evaluation of all recipients. If beneficiary families demonstrated ingratitude or disrespect toward donors, funding could be redirected to more deserving causes. Third call was to my business attorney. Patricia, I want to review our lease agreements, specifically residential properties managed through Anderson Holdings. Any particular concerns? Tenant behavior. Some renters may be violating community standards clauses. I need documentation ready for any necessary lease actions. I'll prepare the relevant files. Are we talking about specific properties? Willowbrook Apartments, Unit 23. B. Recent tenant activity may constitute grounds for review. Patricia knew the drill. Every lease included behavioral clauses about maintaining community reputation. Social media attacks on local businesses or prominent community members could trigger review procedures. By noon, the machinery was in motion. That afternoon, while Stephanie gave her realtor tour, pointing out every problem with our primitive farm, David Davis received an unexpected phone call at Meadowbrook Country Club. Mr. Davis, this is Michael Stevens, club manager. We need to schedule your annual performance review for next Tuesday's staff meeting. Staff meeting? Usually those are private. New policy, transparency initiative, all reviews will be conducted publicly to ensure fairness and accountability. David felt the first flutter of anxiety. Public reviews weren't normal. Something was changing. 2 hours later, Carol Davis got a similar call about her catering manager position. Mrs. Davis, we're implementing new social media guidelines for all employees. Please review the updated employee handbook. Any violations of our reputation standards will be addressed at Tuesday's meeting. Carol hung up confused. She'd never had social media problems before. Why the sudden focus on online behavior? Meanwhile, at Sunset Manor Assisted Living, Administrator Susan Wright was reviewing a concerning letter from the Anderson Family Foundation. Annual Beneficiary Assessment, Mrs. Eleanor Davis. Dear Miss Wright, as part of our standard evaluation process, the Anderson Family Foundation will be reviewing all charitable commitments for the upcoming fiscal year. Please prepare documentation regarding Mrs. Eleanor Davis's continued need for assistance, including any family support network evaluation. Eleanor was Stephanie's grandmother. Her $3,200 monthly care costs had been covered by the foundation for 4 years. The letter suggested that support might be reconsidered. Susan immediately called the Davis family. Carol answered, sounding stressed. Mrs. Davis, we need to discuss your mother's care arrangements. The foundation that's been covering her expenses is conducting a review. Review? What kind of review? They're evaluating whether families have other means of support. If they determine your family no longer qualifies for assistance. Carol's stomach dropped. Without foundation support, Eleanor would have to transfer to a county facility. The family couldn't afford $3,200 monthly. Is there anything specific that triggered this review? I'm not certain. They mentioned family circumstances may have changed. Has anything happened recently that might affect your financial situation? Carol looked around her small apartment. Nothing had changed. If anything, money was tighter than ever. David's groundskeeper salary barely covered their basic expenses. That evening, David and Carol compared their strange phone calls over dinner. "Something's happening," David said. "Performance reviews aren't usually public. And why the sudden focus on social media?" "The foundation letter mentioned family circumstances changing," Carol worried. "What could they mean?" Neither connected these events to their daughter's social media campaign. Neither realized that Stephanie's harmless farm-mocking videos had attracted the wrong kind of attention. But her parents had no idea their lucky breaks were about to end. Because across town, Walter Anderson was reviewing documentation that would change their lives forever. Property deeds, employment contracts, foundation records, everything connected to one uncomfortable truth. For 3 years, the Davis family had been living entirely on money from the poor farmer their daughter was trying to destroy. And tomorrow they would start learning what that meant.
James found me in the barn the next morning, September 23rd, reviewing property documents at my old wooden desk. "Dad, we need to talk." I looked up from a stack of papers, bank statements mostly, monthly deposits from Anderson Organic Farms, Anderson Properties, and about a dozen other revenue streams. "Course we do, son. Pull up that stool." James sat down, but he looked uncomfortable. "It's about Stephanie, about the farm sale." "What about it?" "She's been getting some strange reactions online. People are asking questions about our finances, about whether we're really as poor as she's been saying." I nodded thoughtfully. Smart people, those online folks. What kind of questions? Stupid stuff, like how can we afford Stephanie's car if we're so broke? Why does she have designer clothes if we're supposedly struggling? Someone even asked how we pay for health insurance without farm subsidies. Good questions.
"How did she answer?"
James shifted on the stool. "She said you're too proud to admit we need help, that you've been hiding our financial problems to protect your ego." I set down my pen and looked at my son. "James, do you trust your wife's judgment about our family's worth?" "I trust her. But Dad, some things aren't adding up." "Such as?" "Well, if we're so poor, how come you never ask me for money? I've got a good job in town, $75,000 a year. I've offered to help with farm expenses. You always say no." "Maybe I don't need help." James gestured around the barn. "Look at this place, Dad. You've got equipment that should have been replaced 20 years ago. The farmhouse needs a new roof. The fencing's falling down. If you had money, wouldn't you fix these things?" I opened the top drawer of my desk and pulled out a folder. "James, what would you say if I told you that those broken fences and old equipment are choices, not necessities?" "I'd say that doesn't make sense."
I handed him a bank statement. Chase business account, Anderson Organic Farms, LLC. Balance, $847,382. James stared at the numbers. "Dad, what is this?" "Monthly operating account. That's after paying all expenses, salaries, and equipment costs." I handed him another statement. Anderson Properties, LLC. Balance, $523,195. Rental income account, 23 properties across 3 counties. James's hands were shaking. "I don't understand. If you have this money, why do we live like we're poor?" "Because living simply isn't the same as being poor, son. Your grandmother grew up during the Depression. She taught me that flashy wealth makes you a target. Quiet wealth keeps you safe." I handed him one more document. Property deed for Meadowbrook Country Club. "James, where do Stephanie's parents work?" "The country club. Why?" "Read the owner's name on that deed." James read it twice. "Walter Anderson. Dad, you own the country club?" "Bought it in 2019. Previous owners defaulted on their loan. I picked it up for $3.2 million. So David and Carol, they work for you." "Have for 3 years. They just don't know it. All hiring goes through management companies." James stood up, pacing around the small office. "This is insane. Stephanie's been making videos about how poor we are. Her parents have been feeling sorry for us. And the whole time her family has been living on my money. Does she know?" "Not yet, but she's about to learn." James stopped pacing. "Dad, she's my wife. I love her. But what she's been doing, the things she's said about you, about our family." James had to choose what kind of man he wanted to be. "I know what kind of man I want to be. The kind who stands up for his family." I smiled for the first time in days. "Good answer, son. What do we do now?" "Now? We let Stephanie continue digging her hole, and when she's in deep enough, we show her how far she has to climb back out.
The country club has their annual charity gala next week. October 12th. I know. I donate $100,000 every year. Largest donation of the evening. James's eyes widened. You're planning something. I'm planning to teach your wife a lesson about respect. The question is, are you with me? I'm with you, Dad. All the way. October 5th. Stephanie's biggest mistake yet. I was in the kitchen making coffee when James burst through the front door, phone in hand. Dad, you need to see this. Now. He held up his screen. TikTok video. 3.8 million views and climbing. The title read, Escaping Generational Poverty, How I'm Breaking the Cycle. I sat down at our old wooden table and watched my daughter-in-law destroy herself. The video opened with Stephanie standing in our living room wearing a $2,400 Saint Laurent sweater while pointing at our poor furniture. Y'all, I've been documenting rural poverty for months now, she said to the camera, but today I want to talk about something deeper. Generational poverty. The mindset that keeps families trapped. She walked to our mantel, pointing at family photos. This is my father-in-law's family shrine. 4 generations of Anderson men who never left this farm, never aspired to anything bigger, never questioned whether there might be a better way. The camera panned across our living room. Look at this place. Furniture from the 1980s, carpet with permanent stains, walls that haven't been painted since I was born. This isn't humble living. This is giving up. She moved to the kitchen, opening our refrigerator. Generic brands, store brand everything. Not because they can't afford name brands, but because they've convinced themselves that spending money is wasteful, that wanting nice things is selfish. My coffee mug trembled in my hands. My husband grew up thinking this was normal, thinking this was noble. His father convinced him that real men work with their hands, live simply, and never ask for help, even when they're drowning financially. She held up one of my farming magazines. Walter reads these agriculture journals like they're scripture, studying soil composition and crop rotation like it's 1950. Meanwhile, the world has moved on. Tech companies are making billions. Young entrepreneurs are creating generational wealth, and he's out there planting corn. The camera followed her to my desk in the corner. Look at this. Handwritten ledgers. He still does his accounting with a pencil and paper, won't even use Excel, claims computers are unreliable. This is what learned helplessness looks like. She opened one of my ledger books, showing rows of neat handwriting. Crop yields, equipment maintenance, weather patterns. 40 years of the same data over and over. Never questioning whether there might be better opportunities. Never wondering if his son deserves more. The video cut to her sitting on our front porch. I married into this family because I saw potential. I thought James could break the cycle. Build something bigger than cornfields and cattle. But his father's poverty mindset is toxic. It's contagious. She gestured toward the barn. Walter would rather repair a 1987 tractor for the 100th time than admit he should upgrade. Rather patch holes in a barn roof than build something modern. It's not about money. It's about identity. He's afraid that changing anything means admitting his whole life was a mistake. The camera zoomed in on her face. But here's the thing. Generational poverty isn't just about money. It's about vision. It's about believing you deserve better. And I'm not going to let my future children inherit this limitation. She stood up, looking directly into the camera. So yes, we're selling the farm. Yes, we're moving somewhere with actual opportunities. And yes, I'm going to keep documenting this journey, because someone needs to show young women that you don't have to accept the life you're born into. The video ended with her walking toward her BMW, designer bag swinging. Follow me for more real talk about escaping small-town limitations, #generational wealth, #breaking cycles, #farm life, #small-town struggles, #authentic influencer. I set my phone down. James was watching my face carefully. Dad, you okay? Better than okay, son. She just gave me exactly what I needed. What do you mean? I pulled out my own phone and scrolled to the comments section. The tide was already turning. Check this out. Girl, you're wearing a $2,000 sweater while calling your family poor. Another one. If they're so broke, how do you afford that car? Here's a good one. Something doesn't add up about this story. James read over my shoulder. The comment section was filling with skeptical voices. At Stephanie_Anderson_official, your math ain't mathing. Designer clothes plus luxury car plus poverty equals sign. Girls wearing my annual salary while complaining about her poor in-laws. Anyone else notice she never shows receipts? Where's the proof of this poverty? I smiled. The internet was about to teach her about authentic struggle. What happens now? Now we wait. Her credibility is cracking. When it breaks completely, we'll be there to show everyone the truth. The charity gala's in 1 week. Perfect timing. She'll be riding high on viral fame, thinking she's untouchable. I stood up, walked to the window. That's when we strike. October 10th. 2 days before the charity gala. Time to compile everything. I spread the documents across our dining room table like a general planning a campaign. 3 years of evidence. 3 years of careful documentation. 3 years of watching Stephanie's family unknowingly depend on my charity while she mocked my poverty. James sat across from me, staring at the paper mountain. Dad, this is incredible. How long have you been preparing for this? Since the day she posted that first video mocking our kitchen, I knew eventually she'd pushed too far. I organized the documents into neat stacks. First pile, property deeds. 23 rental properties worth $14.2 million. Meadowbrook Country Club purchased for $3.2 million. Willowbrook Private School, 51% ownership stake. Anderson Organic Farms valued at $38 million by the state assessor. Total real estate portfolio, I told James, $52.4 million. Second pile, employment records. David Davis, hired as groundskeeper September 2021. Annual salary $58,000. Carol Davis, hired as catering manager October 2021. Annual salary $44,000. Both employees of Meadowbrook Country Club owned by Walter Anderson. Her parents' combined income for 3 years, $306,000. Every dollar from companies I own. Third pile, foundation documents. The Anderson Family Foundation had quietly supported multiple Davis family needs. Eleanor Davis's assisted living costs. $3,200 monthly for 48 months. Total charitable giving to Stephanie's grandmother, $153,600. I've been paying for her grandmother's care since 2020, before Stephanie even joined our family. Fourth pile, business records. Anderson Organic Farms supplied organic produce to 17 major grocery chains across the Midwest. Monthly revenue averaged $285,000. Annual profit last year, $2.1 million. That worthless dirt farming generated more profit than most Fortune 500 companies. Fifth pile, the social media evidence. Screenshots of every insulting post, every mocking video, every comment where Stephanie called us poor, backward, or hillbilly. Her follower count had exploded to 127,000 people watching her farm-shaming content. Legal documentation of systematic defamation, I explained. Every insult preserved with timestamps. James picked up a bank statement. Dad, this shows you donated $100,000 to the charity gala last year. And the year before. And the year before that. Largest individual donation every year. Has been since 2018, so when Stephanie shows up to the gala tomorrow night, she'll be attending an event funded largely by the man she's been calling trailer trash. I opened my laptop and showed James the gala's website. The sponsor page listed major donors. Platinum level sponsor, $100 000 plus. Anderson Family Foundation. James laughed despite himself. She has no idea, does she? None whatsoever. Look at this. I pulled up Stephanie's latest Instagram story, posted 2 hours ago. A photo of her new $3,400 Valentino dress with the caption, "Finally attending a classy event where I belong. #charity gala #high society #elevating my circle." She thinks she's escaping our poverty by attending an event I've been funding for 6 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia, my business attorney. All documents ready for presentation, projector reserved for main ballroom, board members standing by for witness statements. Another text from Michael Stevens, the club manager. Mr. Anderson, David and Carol Davis both confirmed attendance at tomorrow's event. They're excited about the employee recognition portion of the evening. I hadn't told Michael that the employee recognition would include termination announcements. James looked nervous. Dad, this is going to destroy her, publicly, in front of 350 people. Son, she destroyed herself. I'm just providing the documentation. But the aftermath, her parents losing their jobs, her grandmother losing her care funding. I set down the papers and looked at James seriously. 3 years ago, when David and Carol needed work, I hired them quietly, gave them good jobs, steady income, health insurance. I've been subsidizing Eleanor's care since before I knew their daughter existed. I know, Dad. I never asked for gratitude, never demanded recognition, just helped a family in need because that's what neighbors do. I picked up a printed screenshot of Stephanie's worst video. But when that family's daughter decides to mock my life, insult my character, and steal my property while calling me trailer trash, the charity ends. James nodded slowly. What happens after tomorrow night? After tomorrow night, Stephanie learns the difference between earned wealth and performed wealth, between authentic success and social media followers. I gathered all the documents into a briefcase, and her family learns what it means to bite the hand that feeds you. Everything was documented. Everything was ready. Time for the final act. The charity gala would begin in 36 hours, and Stephanie Davis Anderson was about to discover what real power looked like. October 12th, Meadowbrook Country Club's annual charity gala. 350 of the county's most prominent citizens gathering for an evening of fundraising and social networking. Black tie event, $850 per plate, with a silent auction featuring luxury items and vacation packages. Stephanie had been preparing for weeks. Hair appointment at noon, $400. Professional makeup, $300. The Valentino dress, $3,400. Designer shoes, $890. She documented every detail on Instagram stories, building anticipation for her high society debut. Tonight, I finally get to be around my people, she posted at 6 p.m., showing off her outfit. No more pretending to fit in with small-town values. This is where I belong. #charity gala, #high society, #elevating my circle. I watched her stories from my own hotel room 3 miles away. I'd been getting ready too, but differently. Simple black tuxedo, rented for $89. Shoes I'd owned for 15 years. No flash, no fanfare. James knocked on my door at 6:30. Dad, you sure about this? Never been more sure of anything. We drove to the club in my old pickup truck. I wanted to make an entrance that Stephanie would never forget. The Meadowbrook Country Club ballroom was elegant. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, centerpieces of autumn flowers, a string quartet played in the corner, waitstaff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Stephanie and James arrived at 7:15 in her BMW. I watched from the bar as she made her grand entrance, designer dress glittering under the lights. She immediately started working the room, introducing herself to board members and prominent families. Hi, I'm Stephanie Anderson, I heard her tell Margaret Williams, the bank president's wife. My family and I are new to the club's social circle. Margaret smiled politely. Anderson? I know that name. Your family's been very generous to our charity events. Stephanie looked confused. Oh, that must be a different Anderson family. We're new to charitable giving. I almost laughed. Margaret was talking about my donations, not realizing Stephanie was my daughter-in-law. By 8 p.m., the formal program began. Club President Richard Taylor took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our annual charity gala. Tonight we've raised over $480,000 for local food banks and educational programs. Applause filled the room. Stephanie clapped enthusiastically, probably calculating her social media content. Before we begin our recognition ceremony, I want to acknowledge our most generous supporters. This year's platinum sponsor, with a donation of $100,000, is the Anderson Family Foundation. More applause. Stephanie looked around, confused. James squeezed her hand, but his face was tense. As has been our tradition for 6 years, Mr. Walter Anderson will now address the gathering. The room went quiet. I stood up from my table near the back. Stephanie's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattered on the marble floor. Good evening, everyone. I walked slowly toward the podium, carrying my briefcase. The room was completely silent except for my footsteps and the faint whisper of fabric as 350 people turned to watch. For those who don't know me, I'm Walter Anderson. I own a small farm outside town, 200 acres of corn and soybeans. Very simple operation. I reached the podium and set down my briefcase. Some of you may have seen social media content recently about rural poverty, generational limitations, and the struggles of farming families. My daughter-in-law has been quite vocal about these issues. Stephanie was frozen at her table. David and Carol Davis, seated with other club employees, looked confused. I wanted to take this opportunity to address some misconceptions about agriculture in our community. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first document. This is the property deed for Meadowbrook Country Club, purchase price $3.2 million. Purchased in 2019 by Anderson Holdings, LLC. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. David Davis went pale. I mention this because several of our valued employees may not realize who ultimately signs their paychecks. I held up employment contracts. David Davis, groundskeeper, Carol Davis, catering manager, both excellent employees for the past 3 years. Combined salaries, $102,000 annually. Carol's hands flew to her mouth. The club members were looking back and forth between the stage and the Davis family table. I also want to address the Anderson Family Foundation's charitable work. We've been quietly supporting local families in need. Another document. Eleanor Davis, assisted living care. Monthly support, $3,200 for 48 months. Total foundation contribution, $153,600. Stephanie was trying to become invisible, slumping in her chair. Now, you might wonder why I'm sharing this information publicly.
After all, charity should be private, shouldn't it? I pulled out my phone and connected it to the projector system. Unfortunately, some recipients of our family's generosity have chosen to publicly mock that generosity. The first screenshot appeared on the large screen. Stephanie's TikTok video calling our farm a poverty museum. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. This video received 2.3 million views. The creator called my family trailer trash and our farm everything backward about America. More screenshots appeared, each more insulting than the last. My father-in-law represents generational poverty. Old white farmers hoarding land. Hillbilly cosplay. These are direct quotes from social media content created by someone whose family has been living on Anderson Foundation charity for 3 years. The room was dead silent. Stephanie had put her head in her hands. I want to be very clear about our farm's actual financial situation. Property deeds appeared on screen. Anderson Organic Farms, Anderson Properties, Anderson Holdings, 23 rental properties. Combined value, $14.2 million. Agricultural operations, $38 million. Monthly revenue, $285,000. The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. The poor farmer trying to sell his worthless property for $920,000 actually owns a $52 million agricultural empire. Richard Taylor, the club president, was staring at the screen in amazement. "Walter, I had no idea you were—" "That's the point, Richard. Real wealth doesn't need announcements. It doesn't need social media validation. It just works quietly, helping people who need help." I turned to face Stephanie's table directly. "Until those people decide to bite the hand that feeds them." Stephanie finally looked up. Tears had ruined her $300 makeup. Effective immediately, the Anderson Family Foundation is reassessing all charitable commitments. Recipients who demonstrate ingratitude or disrespect will have their funding redirected to more deserving causes. David Davis stood up shakily. "Mr. Anderson, sir, we had no idea." "I know you didn't, David. That was intentional. But your daughter did know she was attacking her family's benefactor. She just didn't care." I pulled out the final document. Employment termination notices for David and Carol Davis, effective Monday morning. Eleanor Davis's assisted living funding ends October 31st. The apartment lease for Unit 23B at Willowbrook Complex is voided for violation of community standards. Carol started crying. David sat down hard, looking like he might faint. "You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when performed wealth meets authentic wealth. When social media followers try to compete with actual financial power." I closed my briefcase and looked around the room. Stephanie wanted to show her followers what escaping poverty looked like. Now they can watch her learn what real poverty feels like. The crowd sat in stunned silence as I walked back to my table. Stephanie stumbled to her feet, designer dress wrinkled, makeup destroyed. "Walter, please, I didn't know." "You didn't know because you never bothered to ask. You just assumed, you judged, you mocked, and you broadcast that mockery to millions of people. I'll delete everything. I'll apologize publicly. Please don't do this to my parents." I sat down at my table and picked up my wine glass. "Stephanie, 3 years ago I quietly hired your parents because they needed work. I've been paying your grandmother's care costs since before you joined our family. I never asked for credit, never demanded recognition. I know, I'm sorry, but I also never tolerated disrespect, and I certainly don't subsidize people who call me trailer trash on social media." The room was watching this exchange like a tennis match. Your followers wanted to see authentic wealth. Now they know what it looks like. It looks like consequences. Security appeared at my elbow. "Mr. Anderson, should we escort them out?" "No need. They'll leave on their own." Stephanie grabbed James's arm. "Please, James, talk to him." James looked at his wife with something between pity and disgust. "Steph, you did this. All of it.
He gave your family everything and you mocked him for sport. But I didn't know. That's exactly the problem. You never tried to know. They left through the ballroom's main entrance, Stephanie's heels echoing on the marble floor. The room stayed silent until the doors closed behind them. Then Richard Taylor started clapping. Margaret Williams joined him. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was applauding. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard announced, "let's hear it for authentic generosity and appropriate boundaries." The ovation lasted 3 full minutes. October 15th. 3 days after the gala. The consequences rolled out exactly as promised. David and Carol Davis received their final paychecks Monday morning. 36 years of steady employment ended because their daughter couldn't control her social media mouth. They tried calling me, left voicemails begging for reconsideration. I didn't return the calls. Eleanor Davis got moved to county assisted living Tuesday afternoon. The facility was clean and adequately staffed, but the private room with garden views was gone. Now she shared space with 3 other residents in a ward that smelled like disinfectant and despair. Stephanie and James's apartment lease was voided Wednesday. They had 72 hours to relocate. With their combined income down to just James's $75,000 salary, luxury housing wasn't an option anymore. The social media fallout was swift and brutal. Stephanie's Escaping Generational Poverty video got flooded with comments after news of the charity gala spread. "This aged like milk. Imagine calling your billionaire father-in-law trailer trash. Poor farmer owns a $52 million empire. Poor influencer about to learn what actual poverty looks like." She deleted TikTok first, then Instagram, then Facebook. Her follower count hemorrhaged faster than her family's bank account. Local news picked up the story. Social media influencers' farm-shaming campaign backfires spectacularly. The Des Moines Register ran a feature about hidden wealth in rural Iowa. 3 different media outlets reached out for interviews. I declined them all. James came to see me Friday evening, found me in the barn, same wooden desk, same old ledger books. "Dad, I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For not standing up sooner, for letting her disrespect you and our family for so long." I set down my pen. "James, marriage is complicated. Loyalty gets tested. You chose correctly when it mattered." "What happens now?" "Now? You decide whether you're married to someone who loves you or someone who loves your potential status. She wants to try counseling. Says she can change. People can change, son. But they have to want to change for the right reasons, not just because they got caught." James nodded. "What about her family? Her parents are good people. They didn't deserve this." "You're right. They didn't deserve what their daughter did to them, or what she did to us." I opened my desk drawer and handed him a business card. "Tell David to call me next week. I might know someone who needs a good groundskeeper, someone who appreciates loyalty and discretion." "Really?" "Really. Punish the behavior, not the family. That's the difference between justice and revenge." James smiled for the first time in weeks. "Thanks, Dad. Just remember this lesson, son. Authentic wealth serves others. Fake wealth serves only ego. Choose wisely." After he left, I sat in the quiet barn, surrounded by 40 years of memories. The wooden desk my father built. The ledger books that tracked our family's real success. The simple tools that created a $52 million empire. Stephanie was right about one thing. Generational wealth is real, but it's not about money. It's about character. And character, unlike social media followers, can't be bought.